Hi, welcome to yet another one of my videos. Due to popular demand, I'm making another Google Sheets dashboard. This one, just like the previous one, is fully interactive. So, meaning we have a filter here at the left, which filters out a company. And if we filter out a specific set of companies, all the visualizations change accordingly. We can have more filters, but I think uh, this one is enough. This dashboard was heavily inspired by my latest client project. Just a shameless plug. I'm making custom dashboards. If you want something like this for your company, feel free to contact me at my uh, work email provided at the video description. But this video will be a little bit different. Here we will explore how we create a data set, how we can manage it, and how the whole logic works, and how we can populate such a dashboard. So we'll begin from absolute scratch. So without further ado, let's begin. And we begin with an empty data set. So let me briefly introduce what our company does. So first of all, this company is randomly generated. I've asked ChatGPT to come up with 50 different names and come up with some construction company names as well. All of this is randomly generated. What our company does, it supervises the employees of different construction companies, and it supervises their activities. Now, there's different kinds of activities an employee might make. Some of them are positive, some of them are negative. An example of a positive activity would be something like suggest cost-effective solutions. A negative activity could be not following instructions, and a neutral activity is injury in workplace. So we have a list of possible behaviors. Then we have how many points are increased or deduced from the employees' points account for that activity. Uh, and yeah, that's pretty much it. We just supervise the point fluctuation for each employee, and we see if they're making any progress. So these are the columns that we're going to be working with. We have the worker, which is the name, the company he belongs to, date, month, weekday, weekend of the event, state, so just some geographical data, behavior, so it's one of these things, and also we have the behavior score. Damage is what kind of damage is being done. It's either a company damage or a client damage. Outcome, positive or negative, and then accident status, amount, and injury. Just to track all of these activities. So the very first thing we want to do is to make this a table. Now, this isn't as intuitive as with Excel, because in desktop Excel, you would just click Ctrl plus T, and this would become a table. Here we'll have to improvise. So first we select all of our columns, then we click on the filter icon right here, and you can see already all of them have changed the colors, meaning that each of them has a filter. Now, what we want to do next is create just a single row. So let's populate this row number 2. We know that our workers are in this tab right here, Workers tab. We have our 50 workers here, and each time an event occurs, we want the company employee who is responsible for maintaining this dashboard to be able to select from one of these employees. So we want to make this as foolproof as possible. For that, we right click, we select drop down, we make a drop down list. Here at the right side, we click drop down from a range, and we select our range of drop down. This is our range over here, all of these employees, we select OK. And now when we come back, we can select one of these employees. So let's select a random person, Lily Watson. Now, we know which company Lily Watson works at because we have this column right here. So we can actually write a formula to look up her company, and we won't need to do any other custom filtering for that. So we write down X lookup, which is just a more efficient way of looking up values than VLOOKUP. We search for this term right here, which is Lily Watson, comma. Now we need a lookup range. We're going to the workers tab. We select the whole column. Then next thing we need is result range. So we're looking for B column. And then we return a missing value. So if there is no value, we just return 0. But everything should be here, right? As you can see, it already maps Lily Watson to stellar structures. Now, for the date, we just write down a random date. Our dataset will contain anything from 2022 January 1st until 2022 December 31st. So let's just write 2022, 05, 15, whatever. Now we make sure that this is a date format. So we click on format, we click number, and then date. Perfect. Month, once again, will be automatic. We write down month, we select our date, enter. Weekday. Again, we write down a formula weekday. This one right here. Now we want a formula that will look whether this weekday is a weekend or not. But before that, let me just zoom in a little bit. So to do that in Sheets, we go to View, Zoom, and then let's make it, oh no, the other way around. Let's make it larger rather than smaller, 125. I think that's much better. Maybe we can do even more. Zoom, 150. Yeah, as close as 150. So for the weekend, we have to write a custom formula. It's going to be an easy one. So it's going to be an if statement. So write if or this is equal to 6, comma, this is equal to 7. So it's either weekday is equal to 6 or to 7. If that is the case, our value is true. If no, then false. Perfect. Monday is not a weekend. That's false. State. For state, we're going to do the exact same thing we did with worker, which means we have a bunch of states here. It's going to be a drop-down list. So once again, we right-click, we click drop-down, then we click drop-down from a range, we select our range, which is H column right here. Perfect. And now we can select one of these states. Let's select California. Then behavior, same thing. Rather no. Oh yes, it is same thing. We select drop down from a range, select our range, and these are our behaviors. Perfect. Now if we select a behavior, for example, we select that Lily Watson did this, perfect attendance for the week. Now the behavior score will once again be looked up. Look up. We're looking for this value right here, comma, we're going back to events. We're looking for them in this range. Oh, sorry for that. This happens from time to time. We're looking for them in this range, comma, and we're returning these points right here. If we have nothing, we return 0. If my formula is missing, oh no, it's not missing. Okay, we have 5 points for this behavior. Sounds reasonable enough because this is a positive behavior. Damage. This will only work if this would be a negative behavior with some damage. Outcome. This once again will have to be looked up. X lookup. We're looking for this value, and we select where we're looking it for. We're looking for it in this column right here, and we're returning this column. I hope by now you understand how X lookup works. If nothing, because there might be cases that we write something wrong, we just say 0, right? This is a positive outcome. And these 3 we don't really need for now because there is no accident, there's no injury. And the last thing we need to do is to actually make this look like a table. So first we select the whole thing, we go to format, we clear any formatting that we had before. I'm not sure if there was any formatting saved, so just to make sure. Then I click anywhere on this table, I click format, we click alternating colors. We select the color that we need. In our case, we're going to be using this one, I guess. And we select the range where we want to apply this. So we select the whole range of columns that we had here because we're going to be adding more. Okay. And just like that, we have our column. Our table. If we want to add more rows, we can just copy it. We have more rows. So since I already generated a bunch of random rows, I'll come back to you guys when I copy and paste the whole data set that I had from before, from the visualizations that you saw at the very first minute. So see you then. As you can see, I've copied and pasted 300 lines of data. All of this is noise, all of this is random. It follows the same pattern that we've described a minute ago. If you want me, guys, to show you how to create such a randomized data set quickly, let me know and I'll show you guys in the next video. But just to save time, I've copied and pasted it from our original file. So with all of this, we're ready to begin working on our dashboard. So to do that, we create a new sheet. I would like to zoom out up until 100%. Then we copy and paste our logo. Yeah, this is my logo. Let's make it fit into this corner right here. And this will serve for us as an inspiration for our colors. So we're going to be using some dark and teal colors. And we'll search for a palette of colors that represent this. I'm not a designer. I have no idea how colors work. So I'll try to convince Google to do that for me. To do that, we go to Google. We write down dark color palette. We find whatever palette we need. We can go to any websites, but I need this one right here. We have these 5 color codes, starting from the darkest one to the lightest one. Now, when working with sheets, there's 2 ways where you can create your own elements. The first one I've used in my previous video. So just to run you down quickly, you can click insert, drawing, you get this separate software thing. You can draw your shapes, change their colors as if you were in Excel, and then you just save. But it's extremely unintuitive and difficult to use. And in my opinion, a much easier way to do that is to actually open up a Microsoft Excel desktop version, and you can just copy and paste elements from there. Let me show you what I mean. So I've opened up an Excel desktop, and here we will, first thing we got to do is we actually have to save our palette. So remember those 5 colors that we've seen? We are going to implement them here. So first we go into page layout, we click colors, and then we click customize colors. Now we're interested in these 6 middle accents, and for each accent, we click on more colors, and then we have this hexadecimal code of the color. So we're just going to copy and paste all those colors that we've seen before. Whatever palette we choose works just great. So each time we write down a new color, it will simply save that color. So since I already did this, I already have my palette here. It looks something like this. And once we actually open up our colors, now we can see that there's shades of these colors that we've saved. Now, every new shape that we create it will be much easier for us to maintain the color palette for that shape. Let me show you what I mean once again. So in the desktop version, we click insert, then we click shapes, and let's insert a rounded rectangle like this. We can already see that it is in the correct color scheme. We can fill its color with lighter tone, for example, let's say this one, right? Now, if we copy it and paste it into our Google Sheet, we get the whole element. This is intuitive because we can tweak the size of this element, how much we want in the sheet right here on the left side. and then we just copy and paste it, and we have the size that we need. We can also adjust the size here if we want, but I think this is a much more intuitive way. One thing I did forget to do though is to remove all the grid lines from our dashboard sheet, to rename the sheet so that it's actually dashboard, and also fill the whole thing with our custom color. So we need a color from here. Now we have this pick a custom color function, and if we click it, well, first let me demonstrate you what I want to do. In our Excel desktop, we create another element with another color. Let's select the darkest shade we have in our palette, which I think is this one, right? Now, when we have this thing on the left, the Excel desktop on the left, it's very easy to pick colors that we need. So once we click on this pick a custom color option, as you can see, you have this pixelated pixel by pixel color chooser. So we can select this color like here, and it selects the color that we chose. So if we select the whole sheet, and if we do the same thing, whole sheet has changed the color. Now we can copy and paste our element, and we have it like this. One thing I want to change about this element is I want to have it a brighter outline, for example, like this. So if I copy and paste this one, this looks, in my opinion, much better. So yeah, that's the most intuitive way of creating new elements in Google Sheets, at least in my opinion. What we can do next is create our first pivot table and our first visualization. Now, this process differs from the one that we would use at desktop Excel. In desktop Excel, we would create a new sheet and would store all of our pivot tables there, and we would create visualization from there. But in Google Sheets, it's much more secure to do that in the same sheet as your visualizations. So we will create all our pivot tables at the very right corner. So let's create some new columns to the right. We'll create our pivot tables here, and once we're done, we can just then hide them. So we go to data, we click anywhere on our data, we click insert, and then pivot table, which is here. Existing sheet, we select where we want to place this, and we want to place this at the very right corner over here. Okay, great. Now let's remember what our first visualization looks like. It's going to be a text box, right? Yeah, so we are going to be identifying the people with the smallest scores. So we are going to drag some elements into our into our pivot table. But first, let me brighten up the colors so that we can see what we're dealing with here. And also, let me zoom in a little bit. View, zoom, 125 at least, right? Okay, so for rows, we're going to be taking the workers. Here we have a bunch of workers, we don't need totals. Let me brighten the color here. And then for values, we're going to be using the behavior score values. This by default sums up, as you can see here, behavior score sum. We want this whole thing to be sorted by the sum of behavior score at an ascending order. That's great. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an equals this guy right here, and then just drag down it over here and drag them down a couple of times so that we have bottom three people. Now that we have our bottom three people, we can come back to our visualization, and then we click insert chart. For this visual, we're going to be using this one right here, which is scorecard chart. Now, this is an interesting visualization, and I'll demonstrate to you why. Because if we select the two values that we want, the person and his score, we will be disappointed. Let me show you. If we select two values, one of them is huge, the other one is small, right? We don't want that. I want both of these values, the name and the score, to be the same size. And also, as you can see, the 36 is positive here, although it should be negative, because this visualization shows some sort of percentage change. I'm not sure what it does, but it's not exactly what we need. This is why we're going to use it for just a single cell only. So we click chart. We once again click our chart. Then we select our range, which is just a single cell, the name of this guy, AD2. And we have Caleb Turner. For Mr. Caleb, we click customize. We remove the background color, click none. And we change the font to Verdana. All of our visualizations will be Verdana. And chat border, no border. Then the key value, we want the font color to be gray. Let's decrease the size just a little bit. Perfect, we have our name. Now the easiest way to find the actual score he had is to copy this thing, double click, and at the right side where we chose our range, we simply change AD to AE, since we know that the score is to the right from the name, right? Click enter and we have our score. Adjust the size and do the same exact thing for all other names. So once again, we can copy both of these visualizations by holding down Control, paste, put it over here, and then just change their reference formula. So instead of 82, we need the second name, which is 83. Enter. So instead of this number, we need AE3. Hope this makes sense. And we do this for the third name as well. Right, we have our four worst performers. And now let's upgrade this visualization. And to do that, we're once again going to be using our desktop Excel. What we want to do now is we want to insert some text boxes, which would say most misbehaviors, score, and events. That's pretty easy to do, right? We come back to our desktop app, we insert a shape, which is over here, and we insert a text box. Now this text box has no fill, no outline, and the font that we're going to be using, let me just increase the size here. The font we're going to be using is Verdana, right? Verdana. Okay. We want to write, I don't remember. Let's see what we want to write. We want to write most misbehaviors. Okay. Most misbehaviors. Then what we want to do is to make sure that this text box fills the whole text in one row. And also want to change the color to a darker or maybe lighter shade of gray. Let's try copying and pasting it into our dashboard. We can easily see that we need to change the gray tone to a lighter one and to make this text a little bigger, because this is going to be the name of this visualization, right? So it's easy to do. We simply increase the font size. Let's try 16. Most misbehaviors, and also the color should be this one. Again, this is much better. What we also want to do with this visualization is not only show the negative score of these people, but also show how many negative behaviors they have made. So we come back to our pivot tables. We select our pivot table, we click edit. It's already editing, as you can see from the right. Then we want to filter out the outcome, which only shows the negative actions. And also we want another values box. So we take our behaviors and then we click count A. No, not count A, but count. Doesn't really matter, honestly. This shows how many of these behaviors each person made. So we come back to our formula right here, to our AF column, and we just copy yet another cell. So now we're copying, oh, sorry for that. Now we're copying not only the scores, but only how many of these actions they've made. So we need more space in our visualization. We drag it to the right a little bit. We copy and paste all three of our cells, our charts. I'm not sure how to call these boxes. For each of them, I double click them and I simply change the range. So instead of AE2, it's one to the right, so it's AF2. 22, 29, AF3, and AF4. Nice. Let me decrease the size of this box. Nice. So the last thing we need to do is to specify some more points. So we're going to have a text box that says points and a text box that says number of events, just like we have over here, score events. For that, once again, we are going to be using our desktop Excel. So we copy and paste our text that we had from before. We write score. We decrease the box. We decrease the size of this text to 12. Let's try 12. Maybe it has to be larger than that. We copy it and paste it over here. Yeah, I think this size works. Let me just adjust the positions. The score should be here, right? And another text box that says events. Copy, paste. We have our events. Now, if we take a look at our original dashboard, we see that it also has this additional box right here that outlines the most important things of this visualization. So to do that, we come back to our Excel. We select another color, the brightest one so far. I'm going to be using this one. And we make this shape a little more vertical. Paste it, we see the size, whether it fits our visualization here. This should fit decently well. Now, if we select it like this and save it like this, as you can see, it's on top of our boxes. Unfortunately, Google Sheets doesn't have an option to move an object closer or more further back. So whatever's copied on top, whatever's copied the last is going to end up on top. So we have to copy these values, copy and paste them, and then we can delete the old ones and move these values back here. And now, since this box was created earlier, if we move it here and unselect it, it will be behind our values. So we do the exact same thing for these values as well. And then we do the same thing for the name of our visualization. Just like that, we have our very first box. Now, to see if it actually reacts to what we change, let's create a slicer. A slicer is simply a filter that applies to all of our pivot tables, and once we change some parameter, For example, we select just a single company, not all of our companies, all the visualizations will change accordingly. That's very easy to do. We simply click on one of our pivot tables, we click Data, and we click Add Slicer. Here, we select the column that we want to slice by. So in our case, it's going to be company. And yeah, we can just drag it to the left, right here. And let's test it. So instead of all, let's clear all the companies and just select a single company. Nice. Our visualization reacts to what we select. If we select multiple companies, it will sum up all of them. We can select all, and it works just as expected. What we can also do is change the color of this slicer. So we simply double click on it. Then we click background color. We click on our custom color picker so that we know it's exactly the same as our visualizations. And we have the same color. We'll place it over here. And with that, we can continue with our next visualization. So let's take a look at what that is. It is another box. It is going to be exactly the same as the one before. So I'll speed a lot of these things up. But before we can actually do our box, we need to create a new pivot table. So we simply select the pivot table that we had, we copy and paste it, have the exact same pivot table. And let's make some more room here, right? Let's insert a column to the right. Now, we click anywhere on the pivot table, we click Edit, remove whatever boxes we don't need. So we don't need the filter, we don't need the count of behavior scores. What this visualization is going to do is going to do the exact opposite. The one before had workers ranked from the worst one to the best one. This will have it ranked in a descending order. So we'll have the best performer at the very top. So we just write down the, well, I need another column. We just write down equals name of the person, we drag it to the right to see his score, and we drag it twice more down to have 3 people. So we have top 3 people here. Now the process is going to be exactly the same, so I'll just speed this part up. I'll create a new box, I'll reference to whatever names and scores they have, and we'll have another visualization here. So see you in a few moments. The easiest way to do this is to copy and paste the same boxes that we had before. And when we double click it, we simply change the data range reference. So in our case, we scroll down to this part right here. We click on our score. It's AK2. We click OK. And then we know that the column is AK. So once we double click on each of them, we simply change the reference to AK. Hope that makes sense. So now that we've completed our second visualization, let's test it and see if it works with our slicer. So let's just unselect some companies. As we can see, the numbers are changing. Perfect. It works just as expected. Now let's create some charts. So the first visualization that we're going to make is a line chart. Let's go back to our tests sheet and see what it takes. It takes a monthly score and month. So once again, we need to create a new pivot table. Let's make a lot of new columns, right? Insert 10 columns to the right. We copy and paste our last created pivot table. We click Edit, and then let's see what we need. We need months for rows. We have different months. We don't need totals. And we need behavior score as values. Yes, I think this is exactly what we need. Now, we click anywhere on this pivot table. We click Insert, and then Chart. Just the same as we did with the boxes. As you can see, our last saved chart is the box. At the right side, we click on this chart type. We click on this line chart, and we simply drag it to the left. It's going to be somewhere here, somewhere in this range, right? Just to see if it's the same position. Yeah. Now all that it takes is to customize it. So we'll go through these features one by one. We click Customize on the right. We begin with the chart style. As for the font, we're going to use Verdana as for all of our visualizations. Visualizations, it's a difficult word, sorry for that. Background color. We're going to once again use our custom color picker, the same color as everything we have. Chart border color is going to be slightly brighter. It's going to be the same border as we have here. Great. What else do we need to change? We need to change a lot of things, right? Chart and axis titles. The chart title is monthly score fluctuation. So we can just double click here. Monthly score fluctuation. Great. The color of our title is going to be this gray color. And I think it has to be a little bigger. Maybe 24-ish. Yeah, I think it's big enough. Series. We select the only series we have. This is the blue one. And we change the color to a bright teal, I think. Yeah. Now what we need to change here is, come back to series, line opacity 100%, line thickness. Let's make it a little thicker, 4 pixels. No points, point shape circle. We don't need anything else. Then we need data labels, and we need the data labels, as you can see, they're above the chart. And what happens quite frequently with sheets is that some of the data labels get lost. For example, this one right here, we don't see any data label. So to fix that, we're going to change their position to be center. But as we can see, we need to change the color of these data labels as well, because it blends in too well. So the text color of the data label will be the same gray tone. Yeah, I think it's looking pretty decent. Next thing, I don't want this name of this axis. I simply select and then I delete it. Then for this grid line right here, I cannot simply delete that, but there's a workaround to make it invisible. So we double click on this y-axis. Then we see this option here, vertical axis. We make sure that the font size, we write down 0. It will be automatically selected to the minimal one pass that is possible, which is 6. And then what we do is change the color to be exactly the same as the background. And it turns invisible, just like that. What else do we need to do? We need to change the color of these months. So we double click on them. We click on this gray color, the same for month. I'm not sure if we even need this month label here, honestly, but let's keep it. Once again, the color gray. And now for the grid lines. We go to grid lines and ticks. If we unselect major grid lines, the horizontal ones, I think that looks much better. But what we also want to do is to keep only the 0 line. I don't want to have these additional grid lines over here. So once again, I click on one of these lines and I simply change their color to be the same as the background. Ta-da! We only have the 0 line. Now let me take a look if it looks similar to what we had before. Yes, it looks close enough. The only thing is that this color maybe is slightly too bright, but I think it kind of even looks better. Or maybe we can change it back. Really depends on the user, right? If we make this color, for example. Let's make it how it was before. Okay. All right, so that's it for our line chart. Oh, by the way, we also have to test if it works with our slicer, and it does. Perfect. Moving on. Let's quickly remind ourselves what the next visualization actually is. And it is this bar chart that has the incident type, once again months, and how many of those are company incidents and how many of those are customer incidents. So for that, once again, we need a new pivot table. Scroll to the right, copy and paste one of the tables that we have. Click edit, remove everything for now, and think about it. Definitely need months for rows, right? Remove totals. Then we need, since we're going to be using two different types, which one is company, the other is customer, we are going to be using the columns box here. And I think the damage column is the one that we need. Yes, it is. We remove totals. Since there are some cases where it's neither a company nor customer damage, let me show you an example. Accident, boom, 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 damage, yeah. A lot of them are empty cells, and we don't want to see an empty bar. We don't want it to occupy any space in our visualization. So what we need to do is we need to drag the damage box. Where is our damage box? Into filters as well. So it's a column and it's a filter at the same time. When it's a filter, we can unselect the blanks, click OK, and we only have two columns remaining. Great. The final thing we need to do is for it to count how many of these occurrences actually happened. So once again, we click on damage, values, and it already has a count because there's nothing else to summarize by. Great, and we're ready to create our bar chart. So we click insert, we click chart, and we double click on the chart. On the chart type, we select this column chart. It's not a bar chart, sorry about that. Great. We drag it to the corresponding position over here. We adjust the size a little bit. Well, we'll have time to adjust it later. Now, once again, we double click on this thing. We click customize, chart style, font. We're going to be using Verdana. Background color, you know the drill. We pick up our color. We click on the one that we're already using. Then for the company and for the, for the name of this visualization, let's see what it was. It was incident type. So we double click it and type, enter. Now we change the color to this scale of gray that we are using for all of our visuals. And also I think the font size is slightly bigger. It should be 24. Yeah, looks something like that. Then what else are we changing? We're moving this legend to the bottom. So we double click on our legend like this. And the position is going to be bottom. Great. Month, for this one, I think I'm going to delete. So I click on the month, I click delete, month is gone. Then once again, I change the colors of all of our numbers like this, and the legend color as well. For these values, yeah, we'll keep them over here. So we won't make them invisible like we did in our line chart. Now what we need to do is to change the colors of our bars. So we double click, we click on series, we select the blue one, the company. The fill color here will be this, I think maybe this shade right here. Yeah, I think this looks great. And for line color, no color. Line color here means the outline. And the other one will be gray, so we select that one. Fill color, gray. Nice. I think it looks pretty decent. The only thing we're missing is the outline of this box. Customize, chart style, chart border color. We pick the color that we use for all of our borders. Click OK, and we have it like this. Yeah, it looks pretty similar. Maybe we'll have to play around with the size at the very end, but I think we're ready to move on to our next visualization. And our next visualization is actually going to be really easy because we're once again going to copy our boxes. If we go back to our test, we can see that we have two boxes, injuries and how much of a compensation we had for those injuries. So I think I'm just going to fast forward for this one. The process is going to be the same as always, create a new pivot table, which we're going to do right now, and the remainder I will speed up. So let's go to the right. We copy and paste the latest pivot table that we had. We click edit on it. Then we remove everything pretty much. And what do I need? I need accident injury as a value because that's the only thing we're going to be using. We're going to be using sum, which is the total amount of accident compensation that the company did. And once more, we're going to reuse the same accident injury box here, only this time we're doing the count. So how many of these occurrences we had. One additional thing we want to do here, let me just zoom in a little bit. View zoom 125. As you can see right here, it is just a plain number with 5 digits in a row. Since this is dollars, I want it to be represented as dollars. So I click on the cell, I click on format, number, and then custom currency. Here we select US dollar, apply, and we have dollars. But I also don't want it to show the cents, just the pure dollars. So we click on this cell once more, and over here we see decrease decimal places or increase. So I want to decrease twice, and we have $22,000. And with all of that out of the way, let's create our new box. Perfect. We have our fifth visualization. Let's routinely check if it works with our slicer. It does. That's good to know. We're ready to move on. Our next visualization is going to be pie charts. We're going to be creating these two pie charts, one for weekday events, the other for weekend events. So just to remind ourselves of what data we have, for events, we have this outcome column. So it's either a negative event, positive, or a neutral if it's an injury. All right, so let's first begin with pivot tables as always. As always, let me zoom in just a little bit for you guys. Right, we copy and paste our last pivot table. At this point, you guys should be masters of manipulating pivot tables, right? Now we select, what do we need? Outcome as rows, neutral, negative, and positive. We don't need the grand totals. Then we need, what do we need? Oh, weekend for columns. So it's either false, true, false or true, either a weekend or not. And then we need the amount of these outcomes, right? So once again, we click on outcome, on values, and yes, it counts them. So for our two pie charts, we're going to be using two additional references. So we write down equals, negative, 1, 2, 3. As always, we copy and paste it, and we copy and paste to the right. So we have these false ones. False one meaning workday. Just so we remember what this stands for. And then we're going to be doing the exact same thing for the weekend. So once again, we copy negative, neutral, and positive. Then we copy this column right here, skipping the false one, right? it autofills for us. So we name this weekend, and we're ready to create our two visualizations. So since we're going to be creating a chart, not from a pivot table, but from a regular range, we have to select the whole range. We click Insert, Chart, and in the chart type, we select Donut Chart. Let's move it to its corresponding position at the left. Somewhere here, it should fit just right here. Decrease the size just a little bit. All right. Now let's customize this thing. On chart style, we begin with the background color. As always, we click on our custom color picker. We don't need the name for this chart because it's going to be at the middle. Next, we come back to customize border color. As always, we select our border color. Theme Verdana as always. We don't need to maximize this. We don't need this to be 3D because 3D, in my opinion, looks very ugly. Pie chart. Donut hole should be increased to 75% so that we have more space for our names at the center. Border color should be this gray. Border is between categories. We don't need slice labels. Pie slice. So for each of our slices, we adjust the colors, going from the darkest one for negative up until we reach the positive, which will be the brightest one. Great. Now chart and axis titles. We don't need those. As mentioned, we'll have a separate text box at the middle. And for the legend, we're going to be using the labeled. Let's see how it should look like from here. So we need to increase the size of this thing. Legend font, text color, first of all, is going to be this brighter one. Legend font size, maybe increase it a little bit. Yeah, it should be labeled, and we need to. It should be labeled, and we need to adjust the size of this box so that the names fit perfectly. It looks something like this. Yeah, close enough. Now all that's left to do is to copy and paste this whole thing once more. Only this time, instead of work days, we're going to be referring to weekends. So we double click on our chart, our second chart. For the data range, we select data. We go to the right and we select our weekend range. Click OK. And as we can see, the percentages are slightly different here. Yeah, positive is 42.5 here, 43.7 here. Now the only thing that's left to do is to adjust this bar chart so that it is the middle point is exactly at the middle point of these two visualizations. Maybe adjust this size as well. And we simply need to add the names for these pie charts. For that, once again, we're going to be using our desktop Excel. We copy and paste our names. And we write down weekday events and weekend events. For this one, we're going to be centralizing it so that it's aligned perfectly at the center. So we select this cell right here. Let me maximize the desktop version. We click shape format, or do we? We click home, and then we click on these two parameters so that it's centrally aligned. And then we go back, increase the size, copy and paste this thing into our sheet. Looks perfect to me. Copy and paste, change weekday to weekend, and just like that, we have finished our pie charts. For the next visualization, and actually the last legitimate visualization, we're going to be creating this map over here. If we come back to our data for 1 second, we have this column named state, and it is just a bunch of different US states. Google Sheets has a built-in way of creating geographical data visualizations, and it really depends on what data you have. If we had countries, the map would represent the whole world. If we had some specific regional countries, for example, in Europe or North America, it will be zoomed in. And for states, it has its own set of states visualizations, as you can see here. So let me demonstrate what I want to do. As always, we create a new pivot table. Let's create some space, columns to the right. Yeah, we create a new pivot table. We edit it. It's going to be extremely simple. We simply need state as rows. We remove the totals and once again state for values. And then we count our states. We click anywhere on our pivot table, we click insert and chart. This time we're going to be using this one, map, geochart. As you can see, by default, it shows the whole world and the world is grayed out, but no worries, we'll fix that in just a second. First, we have to drag this thing over here so that it fits our box, right? Drag it here and to the very bottom. Perfect. Now, we double click on it and we click customize, we click on geo, and we have this region right here which says world. We want to change it to United States. And now it understands that each of these names that we have in our data, which stands for different states, is actually a data point. Now, once we click customize, we do the same procedure we do all the times. Change the color, change the border. Sorry about that. Change the border. Boom. And then we need to change the scale. So once we click geo, we have the minimum, mid, and maximum values and what we want for no values. So for no values, let's come back to our test dashboard. We want it to be dark gray. So no value is going to be this shade of gray. Maybe this one looks slightly better, right? Then for the minimal value, we're going to be using the lightest shade we have. I think it's this one. Then for the midpoint, we're going to be using this one. And for the maximum, the darkest one we have. Sort of looks like the one in the example, but not quite. Let's play around with the colors just a little bit. Yeah, I think it looks much better. It looks even better than the original to me. But it really depends on what looks good for you. All right, so the only thing we need to do now is add a name here. And also, I almost forgot, we have this box right here, states operated in. But it is extremely simple. You already know the drill. We simply need to create a new box and to calculate the amount of states that we have. So let's just do that. We're going to be using this count unique formula to count how many different states we have here, or maybe count the whole column and then minus one, because state would be counted as a separate column here, right? As a separate value. Eight. Perfect. And now we just need to add names. Great, we're ready to create our final visualization. And our final visualization isn't really a visualization, if we're being honest. It is just a pivot table. Let me show you. Right here, half of this thing is just a pivot table. We have date, worker type, and damages. And these columns right here are just simply blank columns that have no data in them. It's just checkbox columns. Let me show you how this is done. This is extremely simple. We simply, once again, copy one of our smaller pivot tables, paste it somewhere over here, I guess, yeah? Yeah. Then we edit this thing, we drop everything away, and then we look what actual information we need. So we need date, worker, type, and damages. So we select date as rows. And also this visualization here only shows open claims. We don't have that many of them. And if we take a look at our data, accident status is the column that actually displays whether a accident is open, a claim is open or closed. So we need accident status as a filter. And here we're going to be filtering out only open ones. So the amount of dates has drastically decreased. We make them lighter so we can actually see what is written here. And then it's just about layering additional information here. So after dates, we're going to be using worker. So we just add another row and we unselect show totals. Then we do the same thing once more for type. By type, we mean either damage type. So here it says damage. Unselect show totals. Make everything light so we can read. And the final thing we need is the accident amount. For this, we're going to be dragging this to values. And instead of counting, we need to sum it up. And yeah, first things first, we have to make sure it is light and readable, right? And we turn this into dollars. The easiest way to do this, since we already have done this before, we scroll to where we had this value over here, accident. We click on this cell, and at the left side, we have this paint format. We click on it, then we drag our visualization over here, and we select all of these cells. And the format has changed to be this, exactly the same as that one. Now, I want this box to be fitting all of these workers, and I want this to be smaller, I want this to be smaller. We can change the name of this column. Instead of sum of accident amount, we just say damage. We change the size of this color. All right, next thing we want to do is to change the color of all of this visualization. Actually, it's not a visualization. Once again, it's just a pivot table. Fill color, select our color, select the same as we have our boxes. Boom, just like that. Now for the second part, as we can see, we have a bunch more columns. So I'll just copy and paste the names of these columns over here. Values only. For now, scratch that. We need to adjust the color of these empty cells as well. And then we select all of these cells, we click insert, and then we insert tick boxes. So the logic here is whenever we have an open event, we can track them here, and we can track whether an event has these things going on for it, whether the damage has been assessed, whether there's legal documentation being filed down. Since there's only so few of these open claims at a time, it's easy to do manually, and I don't think it's a problem for any business owner. It's a useful tool, in my opinion. We select these cells once again. We fill the color as needed. And the last thing that's left to do, first I need some space here. Let's see if we fit. Yeah, we fit. We select the whole table and we need borders. We click on the borders and we want these borders to be different colored. We want it to be gray. And then we don't need borders here. We can remove it with this option over here. And then we simply box all of these columns into one big border here. Voila. And once we check out our slicer, clear, we select just a couple of companies. As we can see, the whole system still is intact. The only thing we have to do is when we filter some companies out, we have to manually check or uncheck the boxes. But I think it's easy enough to do, to not mind that. Select all, and we simply need one more name, and then we're pretty much done. And the final thing we're going to be doing is adding a little bit of style. You know, guys, I love to make these waves at the bottom here. And once again, I'll show you how to make them. So we come back to our desktop application. We click Insert, Shape, and we're going to be using, let me find it, this wave right here, double wave. We just make any wave. Now we're going to be using a different fill. First of all, we don't need an outline, no outline here. For the fill, we're going to be using more. Let me just increase the size so that we can actually use this. Shape fill, more fill colors, no. Format shape. For the fill, we click gradient fill. We remove two gradient points. We are left with 2 points. The first point should be slightly darker, in my opinion. That looks much better. Let's make this 45 angles, 45 degrees, I mean. Or no, let's make this style like this. Yeah. The other color should be darker. We can play around with these colors, whatever looks better for us. I think this looks decent enough. Once we're satisfied with our wave, we make a copy of it. We paste another wave, put it over here, and then we drag this wave down so that it's a different wavelength, so that it has an effect of actually being more fluid. Then we copy both of these visualizations. We come back to our sheet. We just paste this thing, decrease the size, and we put it somewhere over here. Or maybe decrease the size slightly more. Now we copy and paste it to all of these spaces in an absolutely random order. Doesn't matter. And now we copy and paste each of our visualizations And like this, we have this effect that our waves are behind our visualizations. I think this looks pretty nice. We can make them bigger, like in our original one, but you get the point. I won't be working with this for any much longer. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I think I didn't miss anything. Let's, for the final time, let's check out if our slicer works for everything. It seems like it does. I'm glad to hear. So once again, guys, shameless plug. If you want me to make such a dashboard for your company or anything similar, contact me. I do this. I have a lot of satisfied customers who can vouch for me. Uh, if you don't, thank you for watching. I hope you learned something new. If you like this format, let me know. And if there's something you want me to change, also leave a comment. Don't forget to subscribe. And I will be seeing you guys in the next one.